Hey, welcome to the 40 Finance channel, everybody. My name's Jeff Beers. Today we're going to take a look at Roku stock here in June of 2021. This is a stock that got a huge boost from the pandemic and the lockdown. And now we're sitting in the mid 300s. And the question for this video is Roku a buy today at its current price? And where do we think it will land in the future? Reminder as always that my stock picks and projections are just my opinion for your entertainment. Please make sure you do your own research. However, if you enjoy stock market analysis like this and going deep on stocks like Roku, then please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, really helps out a lot. Thank you for all your support. All right, so as I always do on these stock analysis videos, we'll start with the bull case, bear case, then we'll get into the stock fundamentals, the charts, and all that stuff to try to determine what is a good buy price for Roku and where's it going to go in the future. Now on the bull side for Roku, they've got a ton of momentum. I just checked the stats and it's estimated that Roku is in 40 million of the 100 million broadband-enabled homes in the United States. So roughly 40% of all eligible streaming homes, if you will, actually have a Roku system. So obviously that 40% is big for a couple reasons. One is that they still have 60% of the current market share to try to pry away from the competition. And then two, from an advertising standpoint, you know, they're getting close to that kind of 50% of available market from an advertising space or a promoting space, and that puts them right at the top of the food chain in the connected TV sector. Now, beyond USA, international is obviously a place that they could make a lot of money down the road. International is always a little bit different than what we see in USA. If you use like Netflix as an example, they've had some trouble getting traction internationally in the sense that they have to mix up their packages a little bit, usually with lower price points, different types of videos. But at the end of the day, international is a huge expansion opportunity. The question that really hasn't been answered yet for Roku is what they've done in the USA. Is it applicable to other countries, right? Do other countries want to put that kind of platform on their TVs? It's really hard to say until they get some more traction. But obviously the user numbers internationally offer a huge upside. Now the last big bull case for Roku is probably the advertising segment. If you're watching this video, then you're probably familiar that streaming or connected TV advertising is growing leaps and bounds. There's a ton of opportunity in there. We've seen Trade Desk stock basically go lockstep with Roku in the sense that as advertising dollars have begun to flow into connected TV, both of these stocks went from zeros to heroes very quickly. So advertising is a big opportunity to grow for Roku, and the projection anyway is that connected TV advertising rates are not only going to increase, but the available inventory is going to increase as well. So that's kind of the snowball effect that we're looking for if you're going to invest in Roku, and that's kind of why you're seeing that the stock price trades pretty far ahead of what most people would consider a fair valuation. And so with that, it kind of leads into the bear cases for Roku, you know, which is it's kind of just an agnostic platform slash software. And while they have big market share today, there's no guarantee that there won't be a better platform software coming from the competition in the future. And the competition is probably the hardest part to project. With Amazon, Apple, and Google playing in this space, it's really tough to tell how long Roku can keep that competition away. There's this rumor basically that, you know, Roku used to get 20% of the revenue from their partners, okay? So when someone signed up for Netflix, when they bought something, say on Disney, Hulu, all those things, then that's one of the ways that Roku would make money, is the integration or the offering of services within their software, kind of like an app store, right? Well, now we're starting to hear rumors that a lot of the major partners are pushing back and asking for lower rates, or even threatening not to put their streaming offering on the Roku platform. And that's where things get really difficult. It's turning into the cable TV thing, right? You remember the days where you had to call your cable company and tell them that you wanted Fox Sports or something because they weren't going to pay the fees for it. We're starting to see that kind of drum up. The question is, though, can anyone offer an agnostic platform, right? So just because Google, let's just say that they have a falling out with Roku. Let's say that Google just says, you know what, we're going to do it on our own with Chromecast. We're not going to be offered on Roku. Well, then can Google attract the partners over to their spot? That's what's really hard to tell about Roku in terms of a moat. Can they do it without Google? Can they do it without Amazon? If those partners decided to jump ship, would Roku's basically selling proposition, would it remain intact? And that's what's a little too hard to tell right now. All right, and on the last side of the bear case, we all are wondering, you know, how much pull forward did the pandemic give us? And this is certainly a pandemic type stock. With Roku, obviously people doubled down on TVs and subscription services and all these things. And Roku's not alone in this. There's plenty of other questions out there for companies like Zoom and whatnot. How much farther will the growth go? No one's questioning that the pandemic had fueled technology to take a year or two leap in advance, if not even further. But now we have to see, where does it settle out, say through the summer and into fall? Has the pattern actually changed forever? Or did we just get a big bump of users in 2020 and then we're just going to see like sort of a baseline effect for the years going forward? All right, so let's take a look at the stock fundamentals. Today you've got a price of about $350. And here's your chart information. So it looks like the peak was in the neighborhood of 470 or so back in mid-February when the rest of the market was peaking. And similar to so many high growth stocks, we've seen this kind of trail off. And of course, the bounce back up in both cases. Right now at 347, you're just above the 50-day. You're pretty comfortably ahead of the 200-day, but you look over here to the steepest dive that it took, which would have been on May 6th. You did see a price in there of under $300. So if you're looking at, you know, where could Roku fall to if I, you know, really wanted to jump in on this one, I'd say you still have a pretty good chance in the right market condition that you might be able to snag it under 300. Looking at historical valuations, the stock's only been live since 2017 and it's not profitable, so we don't have a lot here. It is showing a trailing PE here. I'm not sure if that's actually accurate or not. Probably easier to look at price to sales for now. And you can see, you know, if you go back to 2019, you had a 15x on price to sales. Last year, before the turnover in the year, you're at 26x. So you're down a little bit. And it really just depends on your risk appetite on what you think of 20x sales. We'll take a look at the projections here in a minute to give you an idea of what the forward PE and price to sales look like. All right, going down to the basics on the income statement, we got $2 billion in revenue over the past 12 months. We have $2 billion cash on hand, total debt of $400 million, so pretty good position there in my opinion. And on the short side, short percentage of float at the end of May was 3%. Taking a look on Seeking Alpha, here is our projections for EPS over the next few years. This year, coming in at 37 cents. That's up from basically negative last year. That puts your forward PE at 900. Looking ahead to 22, you might get in at $1.02. That puts your forward PE at 331. Now, while that is a high PE, you do have 100% growth on the EPS side with that number. If they were to hit the 288 in 2023, which looks like the best leap forward from a profitability standpoint, that would be a growth of 189% and bring the forward PE down to about 100. Now looking at price to sales. So if we got in at $274 billion for the revenue, that'd be a growth of 54%. Puts your price to sales, brings it down to 16. I think we were at 20 today. Then you jump to 375, which is about a 36% increase, drops price to sales to 12. You have to look ahead, though, to 2023. If they can get this 5 billion number, 5 billion here, then you'd be up plus 31% in that third year, and your price to sales would finally dip under 10. All right, taking a look at TipRanks to see what the best performing analysts think of Roku. Always double check our dates. We did have an update yesterday. Most of the others are from last month. But the three most recent, which are represented here, you've got a 450, 550, and 550. 3 buy signals, and plus 62% upside. Not sure if these came in from the Nielsen acquisition, if that's what prompted this big jump from these two analysts. It's tough to say, but it's interesting, because I see a stock that has a pretty hefty valuation, yet these two analysts in particular see plenty of more room to run. Now, one of the things I will say about streaming is that Roku isn't your only option to invest in streaming. And when you look at Morningstar's sort of fair value analysis, we've got Roku, Amazon, Apple. And at least from Morningstar's perspective, you have a little bit more opportunity, arguably a lot more opportunity with Amazon in terms of under fair value. Morningstar puts the fair value for Roku at 170. I will admit that they're typically very conservative, but let's just round it up to 200 or 250, and you're still, over $100 over the Morningstar fair value price. Whereas on the Amazon side, and if you scroll further even to Google, you have two companies here that are actually under fair value. So if you just like Roku because you like streaming, I would make the argument that there are other stocks available at cheaper prices in terms of valuation. All right, so from a Roku perspective, listen, I love the company. My house is littered with Roku TVs. This thing back here is a Roku TV. I love that TCL brand that they use for integration. So I am not a Roku hater at all. To me, though, it's really two sides of the coin. This is a 50-50 stock. If you go around the internet and you sort of read, more conservative people like myself have their concerns with the current price. But some of those bulls, like the ones we saw in TipRanks, man, they're calling for plus 60% from here. I don't necessarily see that, but I do think that the world of streaming is not done growing. I think for me personally, I would probably stick with my Amazons and Googles, but if I did see Roku drop back into, say, the sub 300 somewhere, you'd certainly have to think about it. It all just depends on what your conviction is. Do you think Roku will continue to grow and outperform the competition, and probably more importantly, keep the competition away, and that they'll hit on international and this is going to be a huge company? If you think that, then I can totally see the 560, 600 number. If you're like me and you sort of see perhaps a rockier road with a stock that's running off of some pull forward awesome metrics, I think Roku will grow, but I do worry a little bit about the current stock price reflecting a lot of hoopla, if you will. I would say for myself, if I bought the stock today at $350, it would be with the understanding that this is a 3 to 5 year play, and it would be almost likely that at some point the stock would dip under my $350 purchase price. All right, guys, that's my take on Roku stock. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a like, subscribe. Thank you for all your support. We'll see you on the next video.